Hey guys, you maybe remember my review of this Beta FPV 85X Cinewhoop sort of conversion thing. Now, I think it's a really good product, but I really dislike the way this flies. It's just absolutely horrible in my opinion, all of these, not specifically the Beta flight. But what I have today is something similar, so let's see if I will dislike the flight characteristics of this one just as much. So this is basically a cheap alternative to this Beta FPV. This one's like 120, 130 USD, while the Beta FPV is 170. And I think this could be quite interesting because, I mean, if these fly horrible anyways, in my opinion, maybe you can just pick up a cheaper one and get pretty much the same horrible flight results. So, by the way, general point, I'll do more of these reviews in the future. I think these are always kind of interesting for me to test out stuff manufacturers send me. It's sometimes a bit random what kind of products they are. They aren't really related to all the long range stuff I'm doing, but for me they are always a great opportunity to learn something, to test more, to gain more knowledge about FPV and designing FPV products. And often also, to extract some parts, get used for testing and so on. So that's why I'll keep doing these. Hopefully you find them entertaining. I try to keep them nice and short. So let's dive right into it. Let's take a closer look at the Geelang LiPo 78X GoPro. So first thing I noticed when I opened the box, this thing does come with a ton of accessories. You have a 3D printed GoPro mount, there's an Insta360 mount in there, battery straps and so on. Even comes with a battery. Here's a 450 LiPo, a 4S, this runs on 4S. Now you have a manual in the box, which is quite cool. Honestly, I don't even know if this was everything that was in the box because I sort of put it all over the place, but it does come with a manual that does fully explain how to build the entire thing. Now this is pretty cool for beginners because obviously if you need to do repairs, this will actually really help you to do it. The only problem is this does not help you in any way to set this up and operate it. It's just really a manual on how to build it. So an absolute beginner, for an absolute beginner that isn't rebuilding this thing in the first place, maybe not so helpful. But let's say the coolest thing is, I mean, apart from the box here, that is quite decent, comes in a little box. Here you can see 70X GoPro TBS version. By the way, this homepage here doesn't exist yet. They didn't seem to have finished it. But what's pretty cool, it does come with a naked GoPro case. So that is actually quite nice that this is fully included. It's also included in the Beta FPV, by the way. This GoPro conversion kit, which is, this one is molded plastic. This is obviously higher quality. It's the best one I saw so far. It seems to be some carbon and 3D printed stuff, which in my opinion is, in terms of manufacturing quality, is lower standard than having actually something molded out of. This seems to be ABS, regular ABS, not fiber reinforced as far as I can tell. So rather cheap way of molding this, but in any case, in my opinion, better than just having it 3D printed, which basically you could also do at home. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the quad itself. Alright, and by the way, the naked GoPro kit here does come with the backboard, so all the electronics you need for the conversion are basically included in here. Print quality looks sort of poor. Carbon part here looks okay. Also does come with a manual that only covers part of the process you need to do the conversion. So basically starts after you've pulled apart the entire GoPro. I'm not even sure what sort of GoPro here. GoPro's is it supposed to mean GoPro 6? I'm not even sure which GoPro. Here it says. Sorry, I'm an idiot. It'll work with a GoPro 6 or 7. Okay, so that's great. But it doesn't cover the process of actually disassembling your GoPro, so you'll need to watch a YouTube video to do that, which is actually what I would recommend. It will do much better than reading any manual. But in any case, it doesn't include how to strip your GoPro, but all the electronics you need are basically here in this box. Alrighty, now let's take a closer look at the quad itself. First thing I noticed immediately is poor 3D printed quality. This I have no idea what this seems to be. I would guess this is PLA. Seems pretty brittle. Now, if we zoom in, especially the camera mount here, it's an absolute shame. I would seriously be ashamed to sell this in such a condition. I mean, look at this. This is really the 0Fs given printer setting here. You can see individual strings. Really, I mean, I know this is not an expensive product. It's sort of a budget thing, but this is just disgusting to look at here. How these 3D printed parts look. Now, will not necessarily affect the overall function of the product, but I mean, come on, please. Just look at this. Looks really, really, really bad. Alright, now, let's say something a bit... Okay, negative point, these 3D printed parts are an absolute shame. Everything else looks, honestly, quite okay. The carbon frame here, that does seem to be fine. It's carbon plate protecting all your electronics, which is something Beta FPV didn't do so well. Here your board is basically completely exposed. In case you're landing in, you know, some wet grass or something, this is not very smart to have all of your all the stuff exposed here. This does look overall pretty good, the carbon parts. What I do also like is that it's got these foam bumpers here. So if I would be flying this indoors, I would be way more confident that I can bump this foam thing, for example, into my TV without scratching or damaging anything. While these plastic parts here on the Beta FPV, these are actually pretty hard. So if I would crash this into my TV, you know, I'd be a bit worried to damage something. This here with these foam bumpers seems to be a nicer solution in my opinion. This one's here got the naked GoPro mount on. Again, I don't, maybe that's just a taste thing. I think the colors look pretty awful. Print quality again is absolutely poor, but it is soft mounted, which isn't a bad thing. These are the Crossfire antennas here. It's Crossfire version. I mean, not a bad way to mount those. That's absolutely fine. Now, if we look at the electronics, we have a VTX here in the rear. I'm not even sure how much milliwatts this is. I think this is a 350 probably. Maybe let me quickly check what sort of VTX this is. Alright, so it's a 200 milliwatt VTX. That's fine. You really don't need more than 25 milliwatts on the Cinewhoop type things. Now, the motors also look actually pretty decent. These are some Geelang branded motors here, 1204, 5000 kV. These actually really do look not bad at all. If we compare this to the Beta FPV, the Beta FPV does have 1105s. You can see 1105, same kV. But honestly, I would think that a 1204 seems like a better option for me with a slightly wider stator, because these things are notoriously amp hungry and inefficient, and having at least a little bit wider stator is, in my opinion, a better choice in that case. Now, the rest of the electronics is all sort of no-name stuff, no-name camera. There is, for some strange reason, they chose to put a 16x16 in here. It's not a whoop board. As you can see, this is a 16x16, so we have two boards in here, a flight controller and a 16x16 ESC. Now, this is all no-name stuff here. Here's the USB. It also comes with an adapter, so you can actually access the USB, because obviously the motor is in the way. That's all included in the package, but obviously no-name stuff, which honestly does work absolutely fine. The electronics on this might be lower quality, but if you're not unlucky and get one that fails, mine worked perfectly fine. It's basically flies exactly the same as a more expensive Beta FPV. Now, obviously, this VTX has more power here. The overall quality of, you know, this molded frame here, this is all higher quality here compared to this one, but in the air, I have to admit, they're basically pretty much the same. Both horrible in my opinion, but I'll get to flight characteristics in a second. Now, just to wrap up the discussion about the electronics, so I just looked up the spec of this thing, and what it says is, interestingly, well, that it does have a, at least in the Mangot product description here, apparently it should have a 1 to 2 SESC with 5 amps continuous and 7 amps peak, which obviously must be wrong because this is delivered with a 4S battery. So honestly, I don't know what exactly is in here. Seems to be a 411 flight controller, but also it really doesn't matter at all what is in here as long as it works. And the Betaflight setup is well configured. This thing works perfectly. So who really cares what is inside here? I mean, it's obviously just cheap stuff, but for the purposes of what you're doing with this quad, I would say it is absolutely fine, and it's not like you're going to notice much of a performance difference compared to more expensive electronics. Always, as long as the 8 are reliable, which is always it's a bit of question on these cheap ones. You never know. I obviously got lucky, mine works. Might be that they all work, might be that maybe 50% have issues. I have no idea. I can never really talk about reliability in these reviews because obviously just having one of them that you're testing is just a sample size that is too small to say basically anything about reliability. All right, but let's talk about how this thing does perform in the air. All right, and speaking of flight performance, well, it's basically the Geelang handles just like the Beta FPV and just like all of these Cinewhoops, which means absolutely horrible in my opinion. I got the first low battery warning after 1.5 minutes. Yes, it was cold, battery was cold, but 1.5 minutes of hovering, just hovering. The battery sack was just horrible. It feels inefficient, it's slow, it's underpowered, it handles weirdly. I really do not enjoy flying these things, especially if they're flying so much micro long range, you know, which is smoothly cruising for a long time. You just forget about your battery voltage, you just enjoy flying. I mean, this is the exact opposite to me, and I really do not like it. On top of that, the noise these things make is horrible. It sounds like a buzzsaw. It's just super annoying. Now, obviously, I mean, please, this is really just a personal opinion. It's my personal opinion. I personally do not like them. I'm not saying you shouldn't like them. I'm not saying you shouldn't get one if you like, you know, taking some footage with them, doing indoor footage. I understand that if you want to take some indoor video footage with a naked GoPro or maybe light outdoor footage in confined spaces, this is basically what you need because of the way they fly and the ducts and so on, and the protection when you're hitting stuff. But personally, I really do not enjoy how these things handle. I mean, but still, as you're seeing, the footage with the naked GoPro looks absolutely fine. It's basically doing what it's supposed to do. Alright, but well, to conclude on this, one interesting thing I would say that in my opinion is probably the way to go in the future is what Albert Kim did. I'll link his video in the video description below. What he did is convert basically a 3-inch toothpick. I mean, let me quickly grab one. One of these. Albert basically converted a 3-inch toothpick like this one to one of these whoops. He basically flipped the whole thing, added some prop guards, and I think this, and the naked GoPro, of course, I think this might be the way to go, these sorts of conversions, because this will be efficient, quiet, handle nicely. In my opinion, this is just something more interesting than having these noisy and inefficient quads here that personally I do not enjoy flying. Alright guys, I hope you found this interesting. Of course, as usual, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support. Thanks guys.